Good afternoon, folks. We're going to get started in just a second. Thank you, everyone, for coming, faculty, staff, students. We want to welcome today our President of the Board of Regents, President Mark Ojakian. This is part of his tour, kind of town hall tour. He's visiting each of the schools. We're going to hear some remarks from President Ojakian, and then we are going to open it up to questions from the students, faculty, and staff. We have until 2:30, so we want to hear from everyone in the group. So I would ask that your questions be succinct and brief so that we can hear from as many folks as possible. I'm going to turn the mic over to President Ojakian, and he's going to get us started.
Thank you. And I'm going to bring my coffee with me. Your president was kind enough to remember what I like to drink. Coffee-wise, that is. But thank you. After the kind of town halls I've had, it might be time for something else. It's really nice to be here. I just came from a similar gathering at Southern. This is a week where every day I'm on the road, arrive at a campus, 8 o'clock. Tomorrow, Western, 8 o'clock. I've been meeting with some bargaining unit folks as part of the tour separately at their request. But I've been coming out to talk to folks about, I think, where we are and where we need to go. To be sort of the voice of reality in the room as we look to the future of our system and of this institution. Put my key up here too. First of all, I want to say it's been my pleasure to work with your president over the last 17 months, and we will have many other opportunities to bid her a fond farewell. But for me, in every team, you have people that want to make a difference and want to help, and then you have others. I'll just put it like that. But your president has been a real partner with me as we've tried to do what's best for all of you. And she cares, as you know, so deeply about this institution and so deeply about her students that she does give me inspiration and motivates me to do better and to stand up in front of crowds and take tough questions and, in some cases, some criticisms. But I want to talk to you a little bit about what kind of the fiscal challenges we're facing, because I think it's important to understand from where the two strategies that the board has endorsed come from. Governor's budget comes out February. 4.4% cut means a $38 million deficit throughout the system. Now, because the proportion of state funding is greater at the community colleges, 60% of the funding for the colleges come from the legislature, that means it's going to have a much more profound effect on the community colleges. Gateway would have to sustain another slightly over $2 million cut. Built into the budget is an assumption that the administration and the state employee bargaining unit coalition comes up with an agreement of some sort that would save $700 million in what they're terming employee savings. If that doesn't happen, then our cut has the potential to rise to between $90 and $100 million of a deficit for next year. So you can add another $3 or $4 million to what Gateway would be looking to have cut from its budget. Now, I don't cut the budgets. I help distribute the money. So we're up there tirelessly advocating. The students come up there advocating. We're having another day where students hopefully will be up at a town hall with legislators on Friday. We're making our case, but we're competing with a lot of different folks. Blind people, disabled people, single mothers, senior citizens, all sorts of constituencies that on the surface seem to have more need than we do. So we continue to fight, we continue to do what we need to do, but what we have in our system is what I call a structural deficit, where over time, our expenses have far exceeded our revenue. Now, you can increase your revenue by raising tuition at an amount to equal the difference, which would be 13 or 14% increase a year. Or you can try to change the way we do business as a system. And that's what I've proposed having a conversation about. Now, what we have laid out are two strategies for how to get there. We took a look at a number of other strategies and said, didn't make a lot of sense. Didn't make a lot of sense to make the community college two-year branch campuses of the universities. That wasn't the intention of the consolidation, nor is it my intention now. I think something gets lost in that mix. One of the options, $25 million option, is to close a smaller community college. Now, people might say you couldn't do that politically, but let me tell you up at the legislature, folks, there's an appetite to get quick money. And even people who have schools in their districts have said, you can close my school. Well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to close locations. I think it's hard enough for our students to get to the current locations where they go, rather than displace them and have them, A, not go, or get swallowed up by private institutions that I don't believe care as much about their future as you do here. So, a couple of strategies we put forward, and they're strategies. I keep emphasizing, they're strategies. It's not a plan. The plan will be developed by planning teams that we are in the process of putting into place. And they're going to be made up of representatives from all constituencies on the campus. Now, your elected leaders have asked that they be the ones who select who officially goes on the planning teams. And I like to respect people's process. So we will have a small core of teams, and then anybody else who wishes to participate, we're taking people's information down, and we're going to find a way to integrate everybody into that process, because it's important to hear from everybody. The other point I'll make just quickly is if you're not comfortable asking a question in public, or you have a comment, or you have a concern, or you want to share a good idea you might have, I get many emails every day from folks throughout the system with suggestions, and I really value those. As a matter of fact, a student made a suggestion the other day at Norwalk, forget where I am, and it made a lot of sense. So my finance team is looking into it. Whether you're a faculty member or a staff member or administrator or a student, I want to hear your thoughts. So the first strategy is, how do we make better use of our collective expertise around 17 institutions to achieve administrative savings across 17 institutions in areas like purchasing, in areas like facilities. I mean, as I look around, everybody has a different way of approaching these administrative functions. And shouldn't we consider how do we leverage our collective expertise to make things better? You know, my favorite one is purchasing, and I keep people think it is my favorite, but it's easiest for me to understand. We have 17 different ways of purchasing goods and services throughout our system. Does it make sense to think about maybe having a more systemic approach to maybe try to use our bulk purchasing power to save money? I think it's worth the conversation. The other, quite honestly, is a little harder for the colleges, and I get it. How do we manage 12 community colleges in the state the size of Connecticut and not duplicate the same administrative functions throughout all 12? Is that better to consider that, to have that conversation than closing schools? I mean, the choice of doing nothing is not an option, because I'm telling you right now, if we don't do something ourselves to make our system more sustainable and resilient into the future, the legislature will do it for us. There's also a bigger concern that I have up at the legislature, which is about an attempt, I think, to diminish collective bargaining rights. All you have to do is look at the number of bills that have been filed, co-sponsored by members of both parties, to take away, I think, the rights that everybody has earned through the collective bargaining process over time. I'm a huge supporter of collective bargaining. I've been part of state government for many, many years, and in every role I've had, I've always respected the right of workers to organize. I even helped workers organize, whether it was personal care attendants who were making below minimum wage to take care of our elderly population, child care workers, graduate assistants up at the University of Connecticut. I even was able, when I was in the governor's budget office, to get health and pension benefits for our security guards, because I believe in the right of everybody to have the pay that they deserve and the benefits that they have. So I'm up there fighting on a number of fronts to make sure that we get the respect we deserve. And I need your help and the help of all the other institutions to get us there. Now, if we don't do anything, I've heard folks saying, and in spite of the fact that we are having these conversations, that when the budget comes out, as the budget always does, and every party leadership group decides to put out their own budget. So we'll get another, maybe a more moderate Democratic budget or a Republican budget, and there'll be a number of variations of a budget, but none of them put more money back into us at the current time. One of the budget proposals I've heard would take actually more money from us. One of the budgets that I've heard might be proposed would be that they would take more money from us and designate that I close 2 campuses. One of the budget proposals that I've heard is that they assume $1.2 billion in employee savings. I don't know where they come up with these numbers, but they do. So I want us to together figure out a way to move our system forward, to achieve some efficiencies where it makes sense, not to say one function is more important than another function. I mean, I was on a campus recently where everybody was fighting with each other about who was more important. We're all important on a campus, no matter what we do. I had somebody come up to me earlier and she said, I really want to help, but I'm just a minion. I'm like, you're not a minion. You know more about your campus than I do. I I want people who understand the day-to-day operations of a campus to help us get through this process. Because what I want to do is to be able to ensure that we're able to continue to provide what you all deserve. And that's a high quality, affordable education. You know, there was a reason that I titled this effort Students First. And people have questioned my motives. And I've gotten emails, who are you? And all of this. See, I don't respond to hate. I don't respond to divisiveness. You want to give me a constructive idea, I'll listen to it. Otherwise, I'll delete it. There's too much of that going on in the world. But as I've traveled around this state and I've met with all of the students and all the student leaders of the state, I am continually impressed and inspired by what you do, by the obstacles that you overcome just to get here every day and to stay in school and to go to work, or if you have children, to deal with childcare issues. There's a reason we have an effort around transportation in our system, because I know many of you take the bus, many of you take the train, and shouldn't we be about making that easier for you? In my model, my planning model, there comes a point, 2-year implementation period, where I see us having more resources than we have bills. And I want to take those resources, put them right back on the campus in the areas of faculty where faculty are needed, in the areas of student services where those areas can be enhanced. And how about having a conversation one day about not increasing tuition? How about having enough money as a system so we don't have to increase tuition by any amount? Before I open it up, I'm just going to tell you one little story. Before I made my proposal for tuition this last cycle, I quite honestly agonized over it. Some folks wanted me to raise it a lot because it would bring much needed revenue to an institution. I understand. You're running an institution. You have bills to pay. Some didn't want me to raise it at all. That's not realistic, because then we definitely would have to close institutions. So I convened a phone call with all of the student leaders from around the state to explain to them what I was proposing and why. And everybody asked a variety of questions, what does this mean for me, and how much is this going to be a month increase, and can I get more financial aid? All very legitimate questions. But at the end, one of the students said to me, President Ojakian, you've been to see us many, many times. We trust you with our future. We know that we may have to invest a little bit more right now in our education, but will you work as hard as you can to make sure that all of us have the same educational quality and the same services we need to succeed? And I made that commitment. So I'm standing up in front of, many, many crowds, some nicer than others. And I'm always willing to engage in a debate and an exchange of ideas. But what makes me get up and do this is for all of the students in this room. It'd be much easier for me personally to just say, we're going to cut the budget, President Kendrick, deal with it, right? I've talked to her about the budget issues she has here. It's a phenomenal campus, phenomenal folks that work here, phenomenal students, but you got to pay the bills. So I made that commitment to the students, and I intend to keep that commitment. So sorry if I went on too long. I just think it's important for you to know what motivates me and why I felt it necessary to propose 2 strategies, not a plan, 2 strategies with savings targets. If the plan changes along the way and the savings target change along the way, so be it. But you have to start somewhere, and you need somebody, I think, that can help get us through this. And I think that's what people have asked me to do. So with that, we can start.
Okay, I guess we would ask whoever is going to come up and ask a question to just state your name and use the mics that we have placed in the 2 aisles.
We'll alternate back and forth between the two, so you can just line up at a mic.
Students are more than welcome to come up, please. Students, staff, faculty.
Now, I know this isn't a shy group.
Hi, Kim Shea from Social Sciences. When you talk about consolidation of backroom processes, does that include any student services functions down the road? And if so, can you tell me what does that look like to you? Is it people being co-located? Is it less staff?
No,
How do you get the savings?
first of all, I'm not, I mean, the student service functions, I think we can all share best practices with each other. But I think, quite honestly, I think student service areas need to be enhanced,
Okay.
right? Because as budget, and I don't know specifically about this campus, but I know in some places when budgets get cut,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? Student services get cut, security gets cut, library hours get cut. How is that helpful to success? So we're not looking to bring people into Hartford. I just moved from 2 buildings into 1 because I wanted to save money. And what it's meant to do is to say we can achieve those efficiencies and not have people leave their campuses. It's not to take people from the campuses or to eliminate the function. It's to make better use of our limited resources and share that expertise throughout 17 institutions. So we're not going to take people from here and put them, at Quinnebog or no, that's not the intention of how this is going to move.
Well, there's a lot of questions.
Hey. Hello? Yeah. You mentioned oh, I'm Phil. I've been here for a little while. What you mentioned some strategies that you were planning on implementing, but I don't know if maybe I just wasn't hearing it. Where would we find those strategies?
Well, I mean, you can go to our website,
Okay.
or I'm sure somebody here could get that to you. But the Board of Regents has a website, which I don't know what the exact link is, but we can get that to you. And you can see what the strategies are. As I said, one of them is to take a look at how we integrate some of the administrative services that we provide in 17 different places. I always use purchasing as my example, but there's others that we can make better use of the expertise we have throughout the system in different places. And the other is to take a look at how the management structure looks now and how it might look differently in the future for 12 community colleges in the state the size of Connecticut. You now are going to have an interim president starting July 1st, who's president of Housatonic Community College and doing a phenomenal job at Housatonic Community College. And so he's going to come over here and he's going to be your interim president. What the future holds, we will determine as we have this planning process. But I put together strategies and not a plan for a reason.
So that we may have input and such?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And we're putting together a steering committee that's going to take all of the suggestions from the groups. One of the lead people on the steering committee, and we'll announce that shortly, but one of them is the student regent who sits on the board. I mean, you can't have a students first initiative without students. So I want to hear from the students. And whether that's an official role or unofficial role, you have members on the student advisory committee, you have a representative from Gateway, and you also have a student government here. So you should work through those bodies to get your ideas across. Okay?
And just for clarification, you said we can find those online so that we may look at them exactly. Yeah, right? Perfect. Thank you. CT. That's it? Oh,
Is it? Thank you.
that's easy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Social media, Twitter. I have to give my grandson the telephone to fix.
Hi, thank you for taking the time for being with us. I'd like to ask that since tuition is rising, what are you doing to help students afford to pay for their education? Have you considered a better payment plan that would cover an academic year with 12 monthly payments rather than full payments every semester after 2 months?
That's a very interesting idea. I think, I don't know if we can do that at a system level or a campus level, but that's definitely something that we should. The reason I have Sean here, who's my legislative director, is not to protect me, because I need no protection. I'm tougher than I look. But he writes down all of these things, and we actually bring them back and try to figure out, is this a good system initiative? Is this something that you should be looking at at your campus level? Are there reasons we can't? Are there reasons we can? But we're trying to do everything we can to make your education more affordable. You know, the one thing I didn't mention is that along with just the general budget cut, there was a $2.5 million cut to the Roberta Willis Scholarship Fund. That goes to provide a lot of assistance to students in our system. And so we need to, find different ways to achieve savings so that it doesn't become more of a burden on you. Okay, but we'll definitely look into the payment. I don't know how it's paid right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Miguel. What is the state of Connecticut doing to find additional scholarship or fellowship or work study arrangement for students?
Well, I just told you that the state of Connecticut is just, or there's been a decision made as part of a budget process to cut the amount of financial aid. It's a problem. So we have to find additional private support for scholarships in our system. And we have to just, continue to make sure that we squeeze every dollar we can out of different areas of the system so we can provide that support to you. There's institutional financial aid. So even though tuition went up a little bit, there were more dollars that then went into that pot. So we're doing whatever we can to try to be helpful to every single student on the campus. And as you know, we're fighting right now to make sure that our undocumented students have an opportunity to get institutional financial aid, because it's not fair that they can't. Every time I go to a campus, whether it's an undocumented student or a student of color or a Muslim student or a transgendered student, everybody feels at risk right now. They feel vulnerable. And it's our jobs as people that help with your education, and my job as your leader, to make sure that you're protected and that you have the best opportunity you can to succeed.
Thank you.
Okay? Hi. Bring my coffee with me.
Since tuition is rising, making it possible for many students to afford a higher education, have you considered make it the first 2 years of college free as they did in New York?
Listen, I would love nothing more than to have free community college. But there's a difference between saying it and doing it, right? They say it's free. Well, if you look at the New York model, it's being phased in. It's under a certain amount of family income, and then maybe you can there's really still no way of understanding if they're going to truly be able to pay for that. If I had all the money given to me that I think we deserve as a system, we'd be able to not have to have a conversation about tuition. But I'm not going to stand up here and say, yes, I'm going to propose free community college tuition. Where am I going to get the money? And, one thing that I will never do is say something that I can't deliver on. So I'm trying my hardest to keep the costs for you all down as much as possible to provide more work study opportunities for folks. We had a pilot program last year as a result of an outcomes-based funding exercise. I always mess that up. And we took that money, and instead of creating a brand new program that we wouldn't be able to sustain over time, we put that money into a proven product, work study on campus. Most students have to work. So why not give them an opportunity to work on campus where then they become more invested in their campus community and are more likely to stay. So I'd love to have free community college, but trust me, as you get older, nothing's free. Nothing is free. And if it's too good to be true, it is.
Hi, my name is Mary, ESL student. I know you have a bigger problems, but that's the question I end up with.
That's
Why isn't the state of Connecticut doing something to reduce the cost of textbooks?
Textbooks are a big issue. I think I heard that. I remember where the person was sitting the first time I came here and raised that question. And listen, we've been working with the bookstores to try to make them come down on the price to have as part of their contract that they offer additional money and scholarships back to the institution. We're trying to do something with open resources to see if that can be an option, which is more online. And how do we do that working with the existing faculty relationships that we have? So it's a very complicated issue that we are definitely working on. I was actually stunned, to be honest with you, when I first came here and found out how expensive it was. And that when you go to turn in the book, you get like 1 cent on the dollar. Okay? Didn't make any sense to me. So I've raised this. I go to the bookstore meetings that they have, and when they bring in the bookstore vendor, I actually sit there and make my comments known and my interest in moving those costs down. Because if we can't, have vendors that will do it, we'll find another vendor. But a lot of times it's actually the cost of the book, not the bookstore, but actually how the publisher publishes the books. I've gotten to know way too much about publishing books than I ever wanted to know, but I understand that that's an issue and I'm trying to work on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi.
Lauren Doninger, Liberal Arts and Sciences.
Yep.
I'm wondering if any of the consolidation conversation includes anything curricular, any requirement for all of the community colleges to have the same general education core or identical degrees other than the TAP degrees, or will the curricular individuality be retained?
It's my preference to retain the individual curriculum in those areas where that's necessary. I mean, TAP has done a great job, and thank you for your efforts in leading that. So I'm not looking at dictating or saying what needs to happen on campuses. I think that's a conversation you all need to have as academics, with your academic folks, with my system provost, and figure out what makes the most sense. I am kind of trying to move the ball down the road on some initiatives that I think make sense in the academic area. I come up with an idea and then people tell me why or why it can't happen. But I don't see any reason why in certain majors, the last 2 years of a bachelor's degree can't be offered by university faculty on a community college campus. I mean, I've been talking about that now for 6 months. People are now starting to pay a little bit of attention. I've run into students who have said to me, I'm going to somewhere in Massachusetts because what I want is at Central and I can't get there. Criminal justice, nursing. You know, we offer great nursing programs at this institution, but for individuals that want to go on and perhaps need to go out of state because it's easier for them, why don't we make it as easy as possible for our students to get where they need to go rather than make it easier for us? And that's what I'm trying to do.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. And thank you for your leadership on the TAP program. I love the dog. You know, I went home after I saw you the last time, and I told you the story about how my husband had wanted to get one of those guide dogs. And I said, oh, it's such a beautiful dog. And he said, I still couldn't give it up, just so you know. Just so you know. Still can't give it up. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, my name is Nashti, and I'm a ESL student, so if I make some mistakes, my apologies.
I make lots of mistakes.
So my question is, how can we provide additional help to support students with young children? As we know, a lot of students we are mothers or single mothers. So there's many times that when the public schools are closed, but the colleges and universities remain open. So we think that this is unfair, and what we can do to help it.
Listen, I think that's another big issue that I've heard about constantly. And one of the things I was surprised at when I first became the president was that our own state social service rules actually get in the way of students being able to access childcare and go to school. So, in other words, the rules will say you can go to work and continue your childcare benefit, but if you go to school, maybe not so much. I was also at a community college yesterday where they now have for a free child care center that's a cooperative, and that's been done by public-private partnerships, and they have it right on their campus. And I've asked that president to actually give some information and talk to the other presidents about how we might be able to do that. Because I know in some places they've had to shut down those child care facilities because of budgets. And so I think we need to find a different way to do that. But I think unless we do that, we're going to make it more difficult on folks who have children to actually go to school and get a better job, have a better life.
Thank you.
Amanda Sweeney, CAS Department. My
What department?
It's the CAS Department, Developmental Education.
Oh, I thought she said the tax department.
No, CAS Department. Sorry.
I just submitted my taxes on this weekend. I'm like, tax department. Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
My understanding is Connecticut's not the first state to attempt a consolidation. I've only heard horror stories. Is there a model that you have seen that was a successful implementation, or one that you intend to follow as sort of a framework?
I think we've taken a look at a number of states that have done this, tried this, been successful, failed, because I believe we should learn from other folks and take the best practices from all of those examples. I think the implementation of any initiative depends on the people implementing it, right? So you can draw a little diagram and say this is the way it should work, but unless you have, I think, the right leadership, the right participants, the right motivation, then you're bound to fail. And I think what we're going to be looking to do is to kind of combine all of those into the best possible teams that we can to try to create, I would love to create a Connecticut-specific model that people look and say, this has worked. And it worked because well-intentioned people came around a table and figured it out. Some places it's been successful, some places it hasn't. Some states are going through the same process right now. Some more successful than others. I don't think there's a state although somebody was talking about Wisconsin earlier. And, you remember what happened in Wisconsin, you know, huh? And I'm like, I'm not going down that road. You know, because, you know, Wisconsin's a right to work state. Not what I intend Connecticut to be. So I think we've taken some of those lessons. We've looked at some of those strategies, and I think a lot of it's going to depend on if we come together and implement this together, which is why I came up with a strategy and not a plan. You know, I had somebody this morning, just as an aside, she had a little visual aid, and she pulled up this huge binder, and she said, I want to tell you why this will never work. I'm like, okay. This is the Transform 2020 document. And we're talking about academic optimization. And are you going to talk about academic optimization? And I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I know many things, but there's many things I don't know. I mean, Transform was a plan. This is a strategy, and we will get there together with all of your help. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Fahim from ESL class. I have suggestion. What is being done to provide the community college with a health insurance?
Health insurance.
Yes.
Well, that's an interesting question. As you know, I think at the universities, we just had to actually review and change the program we had because we had one vendor that was holding the whole insurance market captive, and was actually charging students for maybe services they didn't need. And under the current, I say current, Affordable Care Act, you know, many students were eligible until age 26 on their parents' account. And then we offered the benefits that were best aligned with that. Now, quite honestly, there's an effort up at the Capitol to basically take students who are on Medicaid and have Medicaid, have the state pay for those benefits. This is what it is. Have the state pay, so students that are on Medicaid who receive their health insurance would then have the same health, I don't think it'd be the same, less health insurance. The state would pick up the tab and we'd save money. Well, Sean's an expert on this, but we don't need all the dollars and cents right now. But that's not the way to do things.
Thank you.
Right? I'm a big believer in the Affordable Care Act.
Thank you.
It's worked in Connecticut. Yes.
Hello, my name is Hannah Atwood. I work here in the student activities and the PR office, and I was wondering how the consolidation would affect like the student activities office and just activities on campus.
Shouldn't affect it at all.
Oh, wait, they won't be part of it?
Well, I mean, my goal
Yeah.
is to be able to enhance what you do and enhance the student services functions of all the colleges. So, you know, I keep saying, and I know people don't believe this, but you know, I'm trying to make this as seamless to students as possible, that this will not affect what students see every day.
Okay, we were concerned that maybe a consolidation would increase the time it takes to get things done, just because people try to do things last minute and like through the other offices too.
No, I mean, I think the goal, as we've shown in some other areas that we've worked on already through the work groups, is to actually become, you know, less cumbersome, to reduce maybe some redundancies that we have, reduce the paperwork.
Yeah.
I mean, in our system currently, we still do a lot of things with paper. I mean, how about that for a change? Let's not do everything with paper.
Yeah.
Let's use the technology we have to benefit us.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Chenard, and I'm the ESL coordinator. And I've been trying.
And you put all those questions together, right?
It's all them. I really want you guys to give them a hand because that took them I think they did a great job.
Great, they did a great job.
Awesome. I have a question too. I mean, I'm just trying to think out loud with all of you. I want to thank you as the ESL coordinator for your position statement that went from, the whole system to President Trump. I think that was amazing. I want to thank you and congratulate you and the president for putting that in place. Yeah, that was just really, really well timed. But I was wondering what your position is on the Excel Center. I'm wondering, I mean, I'm just thinking and trying to figure out ways where we can bring in more funds, to fund education. And, why do we have to put it to the money toward the Excel Center? What about getting drugs out of the hands of criminals on the street and taking those drugs, putting them in the hands of medical professionals, bringing in possible, funds in that area. Another area is of concern to me would be the penal system. Why can't we get reform the penal system and somehow create profit centers there where you train people who are incarcerated and give them work. You let them work through their progress and reform, and have that as another source of potential income for higher education. Other very important projects in the state.
Well, listen, I have many strong opinions on many issues, which are not in my jurisdiction as president of the system. The Excel Center, first of all, is being renovated with capital dollars, right? Then we're talking about the challenges we have here with operating dollars, dollars that come into the general fund. And I think if I was to think about why they're doing that, and I'm not at the table when they make those decisions anymore, is that it's to revive the economic development opportunities for the city of Hartford, which are struggling greatly. They just announced, I think this morning, that the first 2 rounds of the men's basketball tournament in 2019 are going to be held in Hartford. That's a huge economic development boom for the city. And so I think that makes a lot of sense. I'll just touch on when you talk about the penal system, just to let you know that I think we have a tremendous opportunity here in our system, working with the Second Chance Pell grants, to do exactly what you are talking about, to really talk about educating whether those folks are still in prison and are about to come out. Not only is it a good thing to do for society, because it prepares people to have
jobs,
skills when they get out, but it also provides financial aid to the institutions that provide that education. So as Nuntuck, which as you know is in Enfield, which is right near the whole prison community, has taken great advantage of this because they have the prison population right there. Was not always popular to do. There were many legislators who said, not in my district, and what's going to happen if one escapes from prison, and all of those fear, mongering statements that you hear periodically. And what's happened is that's been a tremendous success. And I believe he has a few students now who have gotten out of prison and are continuing their education to get their associate's degree. So it's a great concept. I believe in a second chance society. And the other opinions I have to keep to myself.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. I don't want to get in trouble.
Hello.
Hi.
Speaking of financial aid, my name is Raymond Zeke. I'm Director of Financial Aid.
Yes.
Last year we took in over 10,000 FAFSA applications with a limited staff. How can you ensure moving forward that our students will be serviced in the right way and that applications?
I'm looking to enhance the ability that folks have on campus to actually interact with the students in areas like financial aid. Now, you sent me some information.
Yes.
And I looked at it. Okay.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
I do read these things, and I was struck by the number and the staff. That's not generally the case in other colleges, right? In some colleges, how many people do you have in your?
3 professionals.
Okay. Some places they have 1 professional, and I always say a half of a person, but it's a half of a person's time is spent in the financial aid area, which means that maybe the half of the person's time is spent putting all the information in, The other person has to see students, maybe help put the information in, the processing component. So what happens are applications either are not completed in a timely way or they sit there. And if they sit there, student's going to go somewhere else. If they're not processed in a timely way, student's going to be gobbled up by like a Goodwin Tech, Goodwin College, right? I prefer for the students to go to our system. So we need to take a look at how we can better process the applications in places where it's not being. So your institution might be an example of a way that we would replicate across the system.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have a conversation about, can the processing be done in one place to alleviate that administrative burden? So then your staff, for example, wouldn't it be nice if all three of your folks didn't have to process? And some of your folks could spend more of their time with the students. So that's the point.
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
No, and thank you for your information.
You're welcome.
Okay, I realize that everyone before speaking to me are tall, so I'm bringing that mic down. Nonetheless.
I feel your pain.
So I read in NBC Connecticut a couple days back, and as well today, that tuition price for community colleges are going to be raised to $104, which is not much if you're covered by financial aid, yada, yada, yada. But I have a schoolmate that they're getting charged $20 transportation fee. We don't have a shuttle. He's driving his car, so that's kind of like redundant. And then they're getting a $900 fee for level 3 courses fee, which becomes discouraging. The higher up you go, the more they have to pay. So is there a way that not get rid of it, but rather reduce the prices and get rid of the transportation fee because we don't
Well,
have shuttles or anything alike?
Well, but the transportation fee is not for a shuttle. So let me first of all, on the last part of your question, we are looking at that. That was one of the issues that the Norwalk student brought up the other day, was on the fee structure. And as I met with some presidents yesterday, one of them said, I think this is an unintended consequence of trying to do something to be fairer. So we're revisiting that piece of it because it doesn't seem like it's achieving what we had set out to do. Now, the transportation fee is $20 a semester. Just like any other fee, there's many fees that are assessed at our universities or our colleges that go for in the general fee category. A monthly bus pass is $63 a month. I don't know what a monthly Metro North pass is, but I think it's probably more expensive than that. This allows students for $20 a semester to take the bus or the train as many times as they want, day and night. It's intended to try to help students get to and from school and reduce that expense. The only time they can't use it is to go into Manhattan. Okay, and so we're not helping to subsidize that. And so the goal in the long run too is to increase the number of routes that are available to students and the timing of those routes. We have a whole process in place, and we're working with the whole system on, on where do students live, where does faculty live, where does staff live, where do people on the campuses live? Because it's not only students that ride public transportation, it's others as well. So we're trying to find a way to not only increase the frequency with which folks can get to and from, and reduce the number of transfers you have to take to get from one place to another. And we thought that the best path forward, and the only way we could do it with Department of Transportation, was to charge a blanket fee of $20 a semester.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you?
Good afternoon. Larry Soleil, Director of IT and member of Joe T's gang.
Joe T's guy. I'm Joe T's guy.
Gateway Community College has a very strong tradition of community service and community involvement, And internally here at the college, we also have a very, very strong commitment to personal service to all the students that come to our individual offices, including some of the offices that are mentioned in your broad plan to consolidate. So through a consolidation, how do you propose to maintain this culture of community involvement and service at this college and all the other colleges?
Well, first of all, the proposal or the strategy maintains the local character and uniqueness of an institution, maintains a connection to the community by looking at ways in which to integrate certain services administratively across all 17 so we get, the best of all of what we do. It's designed to free up resources and time to actually interact with the people that you are talking about. So that's the goal. And we hope to get to the goal by working together in these planning teams. Now, listen, I mean, there's a choice. Let's talk about, so let's take away the first piece of this, which is the administrative consolidation. Let's talk about the colleges. There's a choice. The choice is that we close campuses or we try to find a different way to manage those campuses that don't impact students. I prefer not to close any campuses because the campuses, listen, this campus is never going to be shut down. It's in an urban center, serves too many students who would have nowhere else to go. It's never going to, listen, if there was a list, I'll just be very honest, if there was a list of A to Z, I mean, this place is not going to close. But there's others that might. And some of those others that might are in places where there's no other educational opportunities for those students. I've heard a lot of people say to me, why don't you close Quinnebog Valley? It's that little one in the middle of nowhere. It's in Rhode Island, isn't it? Well, I got to tell you, having gone out there many times, that college is the hub of that community, of that whole region there is nothing else out there except the college. Somebody also said to me, what about that Northwestern Community College in Winstead? That's, of course, after Ralph Nader scolded me yesterday, I might think twice about that. But that is really the economic engine for that whole part of Northwestern Connecticut. You close an institution like that, students have nowhere else to go. So faced with those choices, I have to think about all of the students who I serve. 85,000 students I have to worry about. And so I think I would much rather work to try to find a way to keep everybody in business, help all of our students navigate through, rather than pick winners and losers. I'm just not about to do that yet. Your turn.
Hi, thank you for coming and sharing. My name is Omar Livingston. I'm the Associate Director of Financial Aid here. I work with Ray Zeke.
So who's watching The Office?
The other
The
person.
other person? That's right. There's
And student workers.
waiting for the third person to get up, and then he's in trouble wherever he is.
Yep. But my question is really quick and simple. Just wanted to know your idea, your time frame for all the strategies to planning. Is it like a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year thing that you foresee?
The current strategy has an implementation and planning process over 2 years. We want to start as soon as we can, as close to July 1st as we can. I know for some people who want to participate, I was told this morning that it's summer. And I said, okay. And we don't do stuff in the summer. And I'm like, okay, I'll be here this summer. We can't do this seasonally. We have to start seriously by July 1st to put a planning team and a process into place with a 2-year implementation goal. Now, if we get down the road and it's some things might be able to be finalized sooner because there's already been a lot of work done as part of the work groups that I organized last year, and so those just need to be carried forward to completion. Others are going to be more difficult. But I picked a 2-year implementation period, and I have savings targets that I hope we can achieve. Okay?
Thank you.
No, thank you. Now go back to work. Right? All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's been, you have another question? Don't you have class? No, there was one, I joke around because there was
Skipping
one.
class for this, I promise.
No, because
I'm
I'm
kidding.
just teasing you. I'm just like my father who said, if I tease you, that means it's okay.
I appreciate
Okay?
it.
I had one student yesterday that kept getting up and down, and it's like 6, 7 questions.
It's good
and
work,
I
I
finally said
promise.
to him, don't you have class? Like, not today. I'm like, oh, great. Oh, is he? Okay, good.
Someday, but for today, I'll just ask a lot of questions. So, as a matter of fact, I'm a political science major, and this is
Good
my
luck
first.
to you.
This is my first semester in the school, so I was going to apply for scholarships, but most of them require a minimum GPA or a specific field. None of them included political science. That in mind, it's discouraging, but that's not going to stop me, of course. But there's benefits on the long
There's
run.
nothing in political science? I'm actually
That's
looking to
offered.
the team over here. We should take a look at that and see
Yeah.
if maybe we can do something about that.
But if we do give scholarships for political science majors, it will give a benefit on the long run. There may be a future senator or House of Rep that will push for more financial aid from the federal government. Future governor, which might be me, not saying that, but um, might put a priority to education. We might have state legislators that are going to get involved with that. And I would recommend we have a workshop probably run by volunteers to cut down on cost, of course, saying like, hey, this is how our government or state government works, and this is how we get involved. So why isn't there a program in place like that? Or what's to stop it?
I don't have an answer to that question because that's really more of a campus-based opportunity. And so the team here has heard you, and they've seen me nod, like we should take, and maybe we can have a.
Oh, yeah. I will be applying next semester. Oh, yeah, I'm going to use that to transfer. Yep. Okay.
The legislative internship really is an amazing opportunity. I've actually run into some of the current students in the community colleges who are up there now, and just doing a great job. So you should definitely take that up. And listen, it's an interesting field. As a history major, I never thought I would be involved in the political world, and here, happened to be that for many years in my life. But it sounds like you've got a good head on your shoulders and will continue to work hard and not let anything get in your way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Nick Halko. I run the Studio Art Graphic Design Program, coordinator. And I heard you mention fees before, and then I guess you were at Norwalk, and now we're starting to look at fees again
Well,
because my
the-
students,
I'm
my
sorry.
base, if you take a Studio Art Graphic Design course of study, you're typically taking 2 to 3 or more courses a semester in the particular field, which means that you're going to be spending an extra $1,000 in fees a semester on top of, and that's tough for the students.
And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, since this, was rolled out, and recommended and then the board endorsed, there have been, I think, unintended consequences because we've removed, so as I remember, we removed some of the general fees and put them more into contact hour fees, which seemed at the time to be a fair way to assess fees. Now, I think there's been some unintended consequences of that. And so we are reviewing how we're going to deal with that situation. So we're very aware of that.
Okay. Could I have a follow-up question for you?
You can ask whatever you want
Okay,
until
great.
2:30.
All right, very good. So I heard you on public radio, maybe in March, I think it was. It was just before because you were talking about your plan being filled out in April, I guess, or you were going before the General Assembly in April. You're on like Where We Live or something like that.
I had to go to the board.
To the board, okay.
Right, because I work for a board.
So one of the things you were talking about is why you wouldn't want to close community colleges. I remember you saying something about there wouldn't be really a cost benefit to closing some of the community colleges, right? I think you were saying
I don't think I said a cost benefit. I think
there
what I
would
said.
not be a cost
No,
benefit.
I mean, first of all, I think why you could achieve, an easy savings right away.
Right.
I think what I said was that we would not be able to give the students the opportunity to complete their education or other students in that area from going to that institution. So, yeah, I think what I said was it would be easy, but it's not the right thing to do.
So we think that might be off the table then in some way, right?
Unless, and listen, nothing's ever off of the table
Okay.
because the table's never fully set. If there's $100 million cut, or if I'm directed as a result of a final budget agreement, and the budget says, here's an additional target of $50 million or $25 million on top of your cut, your general cut. And oh, by the way, the legislation directs that we close a campus, have to close a campus.
Right.
I don't want to close a campus, which is why I'm working at the legislature to make sure that language like that or additional cuts don't get in the budget.
Because you hear in a few of the campuses, the Philistines are at the wall, and Southern may come over and take over the school, and this is going to become what do you think
The
about
reason,
this?
let me just be very clear. The reason I come here and elsewhere is so that you can hear directly from me. So that all this rumors and, the fact that, cabinets are meeting together to try to better have a relationship between a university and a college doesn't mean one's taking over the other. It means people in the same system are trying to work together. The fact that, we have Dr. Brody at Housatonic has been working with Southern on this A to B program that I'm sure at some point will include a conversation with Gateway. Right, okay, yeah, I thought you had, but I didn't want to misspeak. And so people working together does not mean people taking over. If I had wanted to propose that the community colleges become part of the universities, I would have. And I didn't. Doesn't make sense.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just have a meeting at the Capitol, so I have to make sure I get there on time. Hi.
Hi, hello. My name is Sarah Dorville, and I had a question about the transportation. So you mentioned the bus route, CT Transit, and Metro North. As far as I'm aware, we do have reduced monthly bus passes, but there's nothing for Metro North, and I take both the train and the bus. So the most they have is the $100 monthly passes where you can ride both the bus and the train, but it's not reduced and there's no student pricing. And
This will allow you to get, and we're working out how we're going to get the passes and everything to the institutions, will allow you to ride any train or any bus you want for your $20 fee a month. I mean, a semester.
Okay, so
Anything.
so this is something in the works, not
I
implemented.
mean, the fee is going to start to be assessed for the fall, I believe, and we're working on exactly how the passes are going to get to everybody through the Department of Transportation. But we want at least the board to approve the fee so we could start rolling this out.
All right, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Can I ask a follow-up on that? Will it be available to all students?
You're the moderator.
Hold on. I'll switch roles. Will it be available to all students, full or part-time, or is there certain
Yes.
restrictions?
No, there was listen, we fought very hard to not only get the train in for the same price, which was considered a loss to DOT, but also very hard to make sure that it applied to part-time students, because we know most of our students are part-time. And so, we had to kind of nickel and dime DOT to get us there, but it will apply to all. Hi.
Hello, my name is Roberta Pryor, and in working with our students, some of the things that we've also noticed about the bus passes, so that hopefully you can take this into consideration, is that they also have difficulty in the summer term. So there's a tendency to be able to get the discounted bus passes and whatnot, even through those groups, the institutions that have the bus program, but they don't have access to them in the summer term, and they're taking summer classes, they're coming to work at campus, that sort of thing. So if you all could just take that into consideration, that'd be fabulous.
So it'll
Year round?
be,
Oh, thank you. Wonderful.
but
Thank
it's only
you.
$20 per semester. Okay, yeah, year round. How about that? That's really why I bring my staff, because they have the answers. Right?
Any other questions? You predicted this.
Keep them coming. No,
It comes out of my pocket.
Yes.
It comes out of my pocket. So I quickly did a few Google searches, and I saw that UConn's graduation rate 82% higher than state's average. Gateway, it's fairly low. I'm not going to mention that number, but it's pretty low. So in order, for clarifications, there's the federal financial aid, and then there's school financial aid that's a little less, at least here in Gateway. And I was wondering, why don't we encourage students to take up trade schools? Because I understand the importance of education, of college, university, and so on. But college is not for everyone. Some people take on trade schools, and that's perfectly okay. So why don't we encourage students that are off track from graduating, why don't we encourage them to go to trade schools? Because they can also apply for financial aid there.
Well, I mean, I think just as a general philosophy, I think when campus folks take a look at students, I think they assess them, I would imagine, individually, and what is in the best interest of the student. Should the student, if the student gets a little bit more mentoring, maybe gets a work-study job on campus, will they be more likely to stay and graduate? There's nothing wrong with going to a technical school at all. As a matter of fact, some of our community colleges have technical programs. I mean, the manufacturing programs at 7 of our institutions has been a great success. You have a great program here in terms of automotive. Where's my automotive friend, all right? I saw you in the back. I'm still finding you a home before I leave.
Okay, so I just got clarification that we do that actually in this school.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, I would imagine that every student is assessed individually and that they are guided to the path that suits them the best.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My name's Brene Snow. I'm a student here. I'm actually graduating next month. I have a question a little off of the consolidation, but just a concern that I had. I'm a mother. I originally started at Housatonic, and as a nursing mom, I had to pump in the bathrooms. After doing research, I found that none of the community colleges have nursing rooms, but the four-year universities do. What could the schools do, or what could you do to enforce that to help us, the mothers that are on campus, being that we're trying to serve the population that is very diverse and not everyone has different situations?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't aware of that.
No, see?
Didn't know anything about a nursing room.
See, now you
didn't
do.
I didn't nurse here. Like I said, I originally started at Housatonic, so I'm a transfer to Gateway. So as of here, I never had to nurse here, but at Housatonic, there wasn't a designated area.
Okay, good. And I'm sure that I'll bring that suggestion back to Dr. Brody at Housatonic.
Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Severio Perugini. I've been teaching math here since about 1990. I have a very basic question is, what's going to happen to this restructuring plan when we get a new governor?
Nothing.
Nothing? The new person is going to just accept the lock, stock, and barrel?
The governor doesn't have to accept, I mean, the governor has no jurisdiction over our restructuring plan. Remember, there's a board of regents where there's members appointed by the governor and by legislative leaders and other designated appointees, in that group. We're not seeking legislative approval for this. We're not seeking gubernatorial approval for this. No, listen, in January 2019, there will be a new governor. A new governor could come in and decide he or she wanted to do something different, but there's a lot that would have to happen for them to be able to change direction. I'm not concerned about that.
Well, my fear is that it might go the way of a Transform 2020, which was a total disaster as far as I can gather.
But that had nothing to do with the governor. I'm sorry, I'm missing.
But it was part of the education side, no? It was
No,
part of.
it was a plan that my predecessor came up with to move this system forward in spite of, I don't know if I've ever said this, but in spite of the best advice from the governor and myself. Okay, when I was in the governor's office.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, part of the problem with that, if we want to talk about that, is that if you always think you're the smartest person in a room, you're bound to fail. Now, you may be, but if that's how you come off, whether you're speaking to a university community or you're speaking to a governor in the governor's office, not a good way to influence policymakers that make decisions. I learned that a long, long time ago. There's many things I know and many things I don't know. And will never pretend that I know things I don't. I'm not the smartest person in this room. I know how to get things done. That's my skill set.
My name is Christine Deal. I'm an adjunct teacher in the CAS department, College Advancement Studies in Math. And one of the things I keep wondering is there any chance, given the state of the finances in the community colleges, to seek money from the Gates Foundation or the Rockefeller Foundation or some of the huge foundations that do give money where there is need, specifically for community
No,
colleges?
and listen, I think we've done an adequate job as a system of doing that. Some places better than others, and this Gateway does a much better job of doing that, and also working with their foundation in areas of critical need. And that's a big tribute to Dr. Kendrick and her team. We've approached some of these foundations, and they want to be helpful, but only within specific areas. So you have to have an area that they can buy into. I had a conversation the other day. They had a Pitney Bowes and some other gentlemen who want to be helpful in workforce development at our community colleges and know that we're having some issues. So we're having those conversations with those folks. But we need a program and an agenda and some deliverables. You can't just go and say, we're a community college system, give us money, because that
I
doesn't
just thought
work.
because of the financial impact that maybe that would help. Yeah.
But I think until we show that we can maximize our ability to change and be a little bit more cost effective, it's going to be hard to convince other people that they should just put money into us. It's the same debate I have at the legislature.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for the wonderful
Thank you.
questions.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
President Ojakian.